And we saw a spike. We went from 80% parents, both parents in the home, to 80% no father in the home or single parent homes.
I call this, but your family, Vincent, mine, we are endangered species.
Yep.
We're the exception, not the rule.
Well, greetings, everybody. I am so excited for this inaugural podcast that's going to come to you monthly from Take Charge. Yes, we're taking charge all over the world. And this is actually our podcast is Truth Without Apology. Well, I got a man here today that has been telling the truth, living the truth, and making sure others understand the truth without apology because it's the truth. And his name is Kendall Qualls. He is the president. Everybody knows him. If you don't know him, you know him now. He's the president of TakeCharge. He's a university professor. He's a military veteran. He's a husband. He's a father. He's a grandfather. But most of all, he's a man of God. I call him like the King David from the cave of Adullam. Let's welcome him here, Dr. Kendall Qualls. Bless you, Kendall. It's so good to have you here with us.
Thank you, Bishop. Thank you for having me. Glad to be here.
Yeah. Well, thank you for having me. I think I would say that more. And I'm so excited because when I first met you in Memphis, Tennessee at a gathering of pastors. It was a day I almost missed. And I got there just in time. I think people had ordered their food. It was a luncheon. And I got there just in time when you got up to speak. And you spoke truth to power. You wanted to motivate those pastors around the issues of family and education of children. And I had never heard of Take Charge, and now all I do is hear about it. Can you just tell us about you and your wife Sheila founded Take Charge a few years ago? Just tell us how that came about. Or
yeah. So I'll give you an idea. So I spent my entire life in the private sector. Really, the idea was for me to separate myself from the poverty I grew up in. You know what? I had a taste of poverty. I tell people, I know what government surplus cheese tastes like. I know what powdered eggs taste like. And I didn't want any of that anymore in my life. And also not just that, it's the insecurity when you live in the bad community, like I live in Harlem, New York. It's constant sirens going off, police officers, fire department, everything else. And your community is held hostage by the criminals in the community.
Right.
Moms, grandma, everybody knows that they need to hide their money before they go out because they know the purchase is going to be snatched.
Yes.
So that's what I grew up in. Later, I lived with my father in Oklahoma in a trailer park. And you know what? I didn't know how I was going to get out of this mess, but I knew it started with an education. And I've had a successful career. One of the things that really helped was, getting married to the right woman.
Yes.
And then even though I wasn't looking for God, someone invited me to church, and I went only out of politeness. I didn't want to go to church. I wasn't looking for it, but I tell you, it changed my life. I mean, Tony Evans was the pastor, and that's the first time I heard the Bible taught, not preached, but taught. And so I could understand how it's relevant into my life today. And that decision, I later got baptized in that church about a year and a half later. And it changed my life. So anyway, my long story short, this formula works. There is the formula that works. It's God ordained. And in our country, there's a pathway for you to get out regardless of your skin color. And unfortunately, over the course of our 30 years of my career, what I saw in our community, in the Black community, was even though I grew up in a divorced family, 80% of the families at that time in the late 60s and early 70s, nearly 80% of them were two-parent families.
Wow.
And then we've completely reversed today to 80% fatherless homes, and there hasn't been one national initiative to reverse the trend. not one. And I started looking into this. I'm not a pastor. I don't run nonprofits. We started Take Charge because I saw a huge gap in our community. We're like, wait a minute. I went around educating people. Look what's happened to our community. Talked to NAACP. I talked to the Urban League. I talked to all these things. I talked to different pastors, and everyone understood the problem, but no one wanted to focus on the solutions. They focused on all the other symptoms of the problem. Well, we need to reduce gun violence, and we need more money for schools, and we need all these other things. I'm going like, we need more fathers in the home.
That's right.
And so what I understood over the course of these 5 years, that there's an agenda, and it's not God's agenda. It's not an agenda that works. And so I started soliciting partners to join us in this grassroots national movement to restore our communities, restore our families. Because when I go into our communities, in the Black communities, and I say one thing, especially to a group of Black women, God did not intend for you to raise your children alone.
That's right.
And all the heads nod up and down. And
wow.
They're amen, they're everything, but not sure what to do next. And I'm telling them, God did not intend for you to live your life alone. You're supposed to be in companionship with people. And they want that. They want a husband in their lives.
Yeah.
And our prisons are full of angry young men, and more increasingly now, angry young women that wish they had a father growing up.
Yes.
So our culture wants what we're talking about, but there's no institution ordaining it, functioning it at a national level. And what I started finding, that there are isolated people like yourself, like Terrell, like others in Memphis, Tennessee, and Tommy Quick in South Carolina. There's pockets of that.
Yes.
But unfortunately, you guys don't have the national platform like the loudmouths do. And I think I think you said this before. You mentioned there are organizations that call themselves churches and people that call themselves pastors, but they have nothing to do with Christ or God. And they're confusing our community and our culture. And so this is what Take Charge is all about, amplifying the message, because it's not going to be a political driven solution by politics or money. It's going to be one rededicating our hearts back to God.
But now with this message, you've been teaching on building a family, rebuilding a family, restoring the family, especially in the Black community. Your offices were bombed. Why is this such a radical message that you literally were bombed? And the media, and even I dare say from my perspective, it seemed that law enforcement was kind of sluggish. The media didn't even want to talk about it. So it's like kind of, we don't care. They literally firebombed your offices because you're saying families must come together. Why do you think? And by the way, the meeting I met you at, full of pastors, about 50, 60 pastors, most of them walked out, did not want to engage. Which blew me away. I thought I would have to wait for hours to talk to you. I was prepared to wait in a long line, and I think I was one person ahead of me. Why do you think this is such a radical message?
Well, it's interesting. We go to a church, and our pastor does this very well. He said, "Look, there's two kingdoms. One that's God's kingdom, which He sanctifies, and he lifts up marriage." He lifts up children, family, all of these things that are good and wholesome and everything else. And then there's another kingdom that doesn't. At the end of the day, that's exactly what you got to look at. That we're fighting for forces that are good for the good of people, and there's the other side. It's as simple as that. And obviously you're a student of the Bible.
Yes.
And this is not new.
No.
And I love being in this fight because I know who wins at the end.
The warfare is not carnal, it's spiritual. You are so correct. And the evil one wants to continue to destroy and demolish families. And so, but you keep pushing. And you and your wife have continued to push in face of being firebombed and threatened. But you keep pushing. But you have a beautiful family. I've met your children. I've met your daughter-in-law. I've met your wife. So everything's okay for you. Why do you keep doing this?
You know what? Here's a scenario. So my siblings, unfortunately, did not take the same road that I took.
Wow.
They took the road of the culture,
Mm.
and although they had options, unfortunately, like I said, they took the road of culture. Their children are suffering.
Yeah.
So these are my nieces and nephews. None of them have grown up in a home with a mother and a father in it,
Wow.
and now their children. So these are my grandnieces and nephews. I mean, when I say suffering, not only just in public house, they're in homeless shelters, they're in drugs and criminal records and all these different things.
Mm.
They're part of that. And so I truly believe God did not spare me from this journey so I can finish my career, go down to Florida, and golf, 10 hours a day.
Right.
And he in fact, he shuts doors, he's opened doors. And then this is direction that God has given us, and I am humbled by it. I'm honored by it,
Yeah.
and because our people. And when I say our people, I'm talking about young women, especially teenage boys and girls. They're suffering. Our kids are illiterate. They're graduating high school
Yeah.
illiterate. They
Yes.
don't know why, and we don't have leaders trying to fix it. So what? I just feel compelled, and I'm just honored to be leading this organization is to help this with this solution. It is a simple God ordained solution.
Some people would think that you're shaming single parents, but you're really not shaming them. You're empowering them, and then there's help for those. But then going upstream, preventing that cycle, breaking that cycle from happening, so that people can be free. You shared a study with me that blessed me. I've been sharing it ever since you shared it with me. That there was a professor that did a meta-analysis on the achievement gap, and he found that if a child has a father in the home and is engaged in a church, that the entire gap, what we see as a gap between black and white, is dissolved. And in addition to that, a white child who we would think has white privilege, if he doesn't have a father and is engaged in the church, his white privilege is deleted. He has it no longer.
That's exactly right. This fatherless home problem is spreading into the Hispanic community, where roughly about 50% in Minneapolis, 50% of the kids are born without a father in the home, and in the white community, it's 30%.
Yeah.
The issue is that these kids, they wind up having the same problems from drug, criminal activity, low academic performance. It doesn't matter. This is not a race issue. The only problem is that we have a 50-year head start. And so a lot of these problems, people think, well, they're isolated just because they're black folks. It's not that. It's isolated because these are fatherless homes. And I tell you that there are organizations that would not mind if that continued, because the last thing they want in our society is the return of the patriarchy, as they
Yeah.
call it.
Yeah.
They call it the patriarchy. Basically, what that is a traditional nuclear family.
Yes. And that wanting to move from the patriarchy is definitely from a Karl Marx perspective, a communist perspective, because they would see if the government wants to be your God, the family is a hegemon that causes people to learn to think critically and give values, and they want the values coming from the top. And what we think are black leaders are really communists seeking to have a godless society.
Well,
Am I right on that? That's just kind of my thought.
Here's the issue, that we have a lot of our folks that don't even know not just American history, but their own black history.
Yeah.
There was a coming of age about the same time in the early 1900s. There was Booker T. Washington,
Mm-hmm.
whose efforts, a godly man, and then there was W.E.B. Du Bois.
Yes.
And Du Bois was an outright self-described Marxist.
Yes.
He believed that the best pathway for America was the Marxist journey, so much so that he denounced his U.S. citizenship, left the country, and told Black Americans they'd be better off if they followed the Chinese Communist Party's system of Marxism. And he did that. That's on record. He did that in the 60s. Unfortunately, he didn't take his disciples with him.
Yeah.
Because many of them stayed in academia. They got their college degree, they got their PhDs, and many of them now are head of departments of many colleges around the country. And they've been spewing this stuff to our kids, to our culture. And this is not shaming single moms. I tell you what, a lot of single moms in their 40s and 50s are going, you know what? If I had to do this all over again, I probably wouldn't have done it the way I did.
Right.
And
right.
what we're saying is that what you can do is you can help your children not make those same mistakes.
Speaking of Black history, you mentioned earlier that we had Black people in America have a 50-year head start. And I was with you just recently when you had a panel commemorating the 60th anniversary of Daniel Patrick Moynihan's report, which we had heard. Let's just talk just a little bit about that head start for those that may not know that there was a plot to really destroy our families, which was contextualized into help.
Right.
Can you talk about that?
Yeah. So Daniel Patrick Moynihan, he served in 4 U.S. presidents' administration. He's one of these guys, a Democrat. He's one of these guys that you would call a statesman. Yeah. Basically, a trusted official, doesn't matter what party, that he's going to tell the truth and he's going to do what's right for the country and for the people of the country. He grew up in a fatherless home through the Great Depression. He was advocating and promoting this issue about the Black community having 24% of fatherless homes in 1965. Yeah. Now, think about that. 76% were 2-parent families. They were poor. They were gone through segregation. They had gone through the Jim Crow laws, but we were still intact. We still had a community. We still had businesses, and we had people owning homes.
Wow.
But what he said is that the promotion of these welfare programs, where you can only get these benefits if there's not a father in the home, will destroy the Black community. And he was told by Blacks and white elites, sit down, be quiet, you don't know what you're talking about, you're a racist. And we'll fix this problem. Now you can say, okay, well, maybe they were right. But after the first decade, the second decade, there was no warning signs, no bells going off, bing, 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 this is getting worse. So in the 80s and then the 90s, nothing from any of these organizations to try to reverse the trend. It's evil. At a certain point, you forget politics, this is evil. And again, to your point, this is exactly what the Marxists and socialists want.
Yes.
Forget this idea of black and white, with the white man and white. This is an ideology that is against the foundation of America, the foundation of what God believes, because Marxists and socialists don't believe that your rights come from God.
Right.
They believe your rights come from whatever we say it is from the government.
Yep. And
then if you want benefits, if you want all these different, you want to open a business, well, we have to approve it. They want government centricity, yes, not your rights from individuals, like the government and the continent, not government, like the Declaration of Independence and the Constitution is.
Right.
It is us empowering the government. They want to flip it down to the government empowers you. That is not what the country's, and we've been duped. We've been duped for the last 50 years. And I believe that we have even black leaders at the local level don't know that they've been orchestrated and they've been participating in this, helping their culture, helping their communities in this position, and don't even know, because they're getting backdoor dollars from the government. Every one of these, not everyone, but a lot of these pastors will have a 501c3. It supplements their income, and a lot of that comes from their connections in government.
Wow. And that whole war on poverty, 1965, began the AFDC program, AIDS to families with dependent children. And you said it, there could not be a man in the house. It incentivized removing a man out of the house and we'll take care of you. And we saw a spike. We went from 80% parents, both parents in the home, to 80% no father in the home or single parent homes. And we can see it, and you show it in your studies. There's a direct correlation in peaking in crime, prison, everything. Right. And then, of course, later, Bill Clinton brings the war on drugs, which arrests a lot of the results of this. So then it exacerbates the problem. So there's the war on poverty and the war on drugs, which disproportionately affects us. And here we are now.
That's right.
Just last night in my church, a young man in my church got shot being robbed. A grown man with a family, everything. He gets shot by a 14-year-old trying to rob him.
Oh,
14-year-old.
And you know what, Vincent, I tell you, this is the issue what's happening in culture. This is why we got to move and we got to get pastors behind this.
Yes.
Generation, the crime and the lawlessness gets worse. And you're starting to see it in the things that we see in our girls do today.
Yes.
Would never be seen just 10, 20 years ago.
Well, they follow Doja Cat and Lululemon and Cardi B and Nicki Minaj and Megan Thee Stallion, who these people were put up by presidential candidates as heroes. And these women are just not the example. You're right. And our women will shoot, kill you, maim you, and glorify and celebrate their body count.
Right.
So they'll say, I have a body count of 100, which means I slept with 100 men, and they will talk about it on social media.
That's right.
By God.
And each generation will get worse and worse. And you know what, the sad part about it for me, to be honest with you, is that when I've reached out to pastors, just like you saw it.
Yeah.
They don't understand, or number one, that's not, the times we're living in, and their responsibility, or number two, they don't care. They want to go where the money is, and this is not it. And this is Nehemiah 13 to tell you, Nehemiah chapter 13. That's what we're dealing with.
And because of that, everybody that calls himself a pastor is not really a shepherd. And everyone that calls himself a church is not really a church. Because of that, Take Charge is going to soon, by the end of the year, come out with a list of recommended churches and cities who actually have a biblical worldview and hold on to the message of family.
Well, here's the reason we're doing that, because I can remember when I found what I believed was good Bible teaching church and a road to kind of get our family, when a young family just getting started. What does it mean to be a husband? What does it mean to be a wife? What it means to be a father? Well, guess what? We don't want to replicate what we grew up with.
Right.
Well, what do? You can't just do the opposite. Well, there is instructions, and again, these are all biblical. They're there.
Yeah.
But the problem is, I can't tell my brother that lives in New York City or someone that lives in Nebraska, just find a good church. Well, it's easier to find a more consistent hamburger at McDonald's than it is to find a good Bible teaching church.
Yes.
And so this is what we're going to do as a part of Take Charge. You'll be able to find on our website, you type in your zip code, and we can find, God willing, we can find a church, good Bible teaching church around your community.
That's exciting. And if they're a good Bible teaching church and they're with Take Charge, I think they'll be aligned. And one of the questions for these churches, are they in line with our declaration of war? I'm calling it declaration of war. There's a declaration that you have coming out that's already out. And I want to talk about that a bit. There it is there, a declaration of revival and redemption. God gave this to you. You wrote this, and I remember the first draft, you tweaked it a bit, but it is phenomenal. How did you come up with this declaration?
Well, again, when we look at the things that's going on in our community, people want relief. They want the pathway. They're wanting everything we're talking about. Yeah. And they're wanting everything in this declaration. But you can only get it by humbling yourselves and your decision-making processes, all of these things. These are things our grandparents used to do. This was the norm of the culture.
Yes.
So the declaration is all about returning back to our Christian heritage.
Yes.
When
you say that, you said we as the descendants of Black slaves in America are fed up. And we got to return to the God that freed us. Because the scripture says, remember that you are slaves and that the Lord freed you.
That's right.
And that's what you're going to go to. Go ahead. I'm sorry. I hate to interrupt, but I just want that is just so catchy, that first statement.
It is. every person in this country is benefiting from the civil rights movement, except Black folks, the ones that are intended for.
And DEI, for that matter.
That's right. Those were descendants of American Black slaves.
Yes.
If you're Black from Jamaica, you're Black from Nigeria, you're doing great in this country.
Yeah.
But native-born Black Americans have been duped. We've been sold, and we've got people leading us away from God. This declaration is nothing more than being the prodigal son, the prodigal daughter, and realizing we've gone astray. We want to return back to you, God, in your teachings, and we're going to. And we in this declaration we call out the shysters. We're no longer going to follow these organizations, these people, because they led us astray.
Right.
We're going to embrace our citizenship, and we're going to embrace the responsibility we have as parents to direct our kids to the schools where they can learn.
Yes.
And so it's all about empowerment and understanding our power comes not from government, but from God above, and our own abilities, our own God-given abilities to accomplish these things.
You even talk about in the declaration the damage that the social welfare system has done to our community, and we must turn from that. And I think we kind of talked about that, but I think that's beautiful in there. But then you go even further to talk about that the legacy civil rights organizations have failed in the past. And something we reject that whole thing. Can you talk about that just a bit?
Yeah. So again, we contacted the national organizations of the NAACP, the Urban League, the local communities, the local leaders. Look, a lot of these guys are tied to political parties, and they've morphed themselves into nothing more than extensions of a political party.
Yep.
When you go to their website, there is nothing on their website about the fatherless home crisis. There hasn't been. They'll talk about climate racism, all these different woke things that have nothing to do about solving the underlying problem.
Right.
Even today, I saw that they're spending $20 million to help educate Black community, so we can get the underserved Black community to get more nurses. If you want to get more nurses, how? Again, let's go back to the study that we took, this meta-analysis.
Yeah.
You fix the family, the academic disparities diminish. Again, root cause.
That's
you get more kids doing well in elementary school, middle school, high school, college. We'll populate every profession because we have a competent population that has been grown and reared in a way that they should be. Now, it doesn't make it formal. It doesn't make every family is going to be correct. But you know what? Those families that went off, and these kids that went off and did crime and messed up, they were the exception. They weren't the norm.
Right.
What's so sad, I call this, what your family, Vincent, mine, we are endangered species.
Yep.
We're the exception, not the rule.
Wow.
And what's so sad about this is the government that will, if they see an endangered species guppy or frog, they'll launch a campaign around it, $100 million gala. They'll return that guppy back to its natural state of 80%, 90% healthiness in 10 years, but they wouldn't do it for the Black community.
Wow.
It's an agenda that's political. Again, this is not racist. This is how do we undermine this country? We're going to use Black folks to do it.
Wow. Woo. Now you are, all of you who are listening or watching, wherever you are, you understand why Kendall Qualls is the man that we're talking to start this thing out. Harlem, by the way, Take Charge will be in Harlem. We're going to take it full circle. So we're going back to Harlem and all over the country. If people are interested in this message or getting you as a speaker to come, I would recommend it. By the way, I'm sorry, but by the way, you are at my leadership summit in January. There's a lot of pastors there from across the country. So in April, there was some pastors in town. I took them to lunch, and this pastor said, "Man, there was a speaker at your church, just changed my life, changed my perspective." Then he began for 30 minutes to teach me what you taught him. And I said, "Yeah, I know." And so the message is reverberating. He's teaching it everywhere he can in his church, and he's excited, and God is doing things. How would people reach out if they wanted to become a part of Take Charge, or if they want to have you to come to whatever? I would recommend that you be at whatever. But listen, fill a stadium up when Kendall comes.
Well, here it is. So first of all, you can go to takechargeus.com, takechargeus.com. Now, on that website, if you go to the upper right and then look that little icon, it's the YouTube icon, you hit play. We have over 60 videos, short little video vignettes of regular old average folks talking about their journey. What we do, we promote marriage, two-parent family, we promote school choice, we promote returning back to God, and all this. I mean, we have former gangbangers on these videos to corporate attorneys and everything in between. People that never got in trouble. But what it is, we speak truth. And so, look, if you're dyed in the wool of, well, we have institutional racism, systemic racism, and all these. Look, our forefathers. When I say forefathers, I'm not talking back in the 1800s. I'm talking about our grandparents. Yeah. They had it much worse than we did.
Yes.
They didn't abandon their children. They didn't abandon their wives.
Right.
And they had all the reasons to do so. They had nothing.
Right.
They lived through the Great Depression. Their wages. I mean, it was legally sanctioned to disadvantage these families. And so we need to reframe our thinking and not get it all pumped into our heads from the legacy news shows, and really look at things in the macro level. So we have all the data on our website. If you go look at these different tabs, you'll find all the different information. You can look at it and research it yourself.
Yes.
All we're doing is marketing the truth, and not without apology.
Amen. Thank you for that. One last thing before we go. You're doing something big in 2026 as a big family retreat and camp. It's really exciting. Details will be coming forth, but we're looking at 4th of July week, that week of 4th of July. And that's what, can you talk just a little bit about that? I know our time is almost up.
Yeah, absolutely. And actually, this was an idea from you and some of the other pastors. What does it look like? I mean, a lot of our young children, they've never seen families, black family, two-parent black families together. Now, we're going to invite single moms and grandmoms to come too, because what our kids need to see is that this used to be the norm. It's okay for us to get together as families, have a barbecue and all these other different things, have retreats, and have fun without any shots being fired.
That's right.
Any arguments and fights, and arguments going down, and there's a throwdown fight over someplace. That used to be the norm. And so in this weekend, we're going to have some Bible study. We're going to basically outline, those roles of what fathers are, what wives are, because the culture today does not teach men how to honor their wives and respect their wives, all these different, and vice versa. And for wives to do that, I mean, not in this day. We have everyone's a feminist mom, and so or a wife, and they don't see their marriage as a team together. It's we share the same house and same thing, but everything else is separate. So that's one extreme. But anyway, the point of this retreat is to how do we actually start rebuilding the community, rebuilding our families. And in the meantime, we'll have some fun along the way too. It's a retreat. We're going to be doing some volleyball. We're going to do some skeet shooting and kayaking and all that.
So watch, those that are listening, watch this space. Keep up with the website, takechargeus.org. You will know what's happening. It's coming. And listen, I'm bringing my church. I'm bringing my church to this. This is going to be something we go to, and I'm excited about it. Kendall Qualls, I'm so excited and elated to have talked to you. I have nothing but notes of things to say, and then from what you have said. But I think we've encapsulated the mission, the message, and the urgency, and I honor you for that. And I thank you for your time.
Well, thank you, Vincent. Thank you for having me on.
Yeah. Is there anything else you want to add before going?
You know what? Here's the one thing for this. If you can't make it, go to the website. For those of you that you feel like, well, my time is gone, I'm too old for this. Hey, pray for a return to our culture. You know, prayer does mean have impact. It does mean something.
Yeah.
And we were not intended to be slaves in this country for hundreds of years, then be freed, and then be re-slaved again in another format. And this is really about returning back to our culture, our norms, and asking for God for restoration.
Amen to that. Thank you, my brother. Thank you so much. Once again, Kendall Qualls, the president of TakeCharge, is all over the U.S. And listen, coming to you, go to the website, share the videos wherever you can, send those out to people, share them on your page, on social media, whatever you be. And listen, every month we'll be talking on this message. How do we restore God's design for the family, and which means we'll restore our community, restore our nation. God bless you. It's been truth without apology. God bless you.